What's up, comic book fans? Anchorpete here, and I'm joined by my good friend Brian, Mr. Coors Hair. You got on the same shirt you had on before, right?
I do. Are you sick of me yet, too?
No, I could never be sick of you, my man. I want the conversation to keep going. If you're wondering what the hell we're talking about, Brian and I just did a video over on the Lastercast channel where we talked about the horror that's in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Did you have fun doing that?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, although I really regret we were talking about kind of like gateway horror things for us and things that kind of disturbed us when we were younger. I completely forgot to mention this movie over here.
Yes.
I sort of, and but talk about something that was scary and shaped my young mind quite a bit. Really, like my first exposure to death. To be perfectly honest.
And it wasn't just like one death. Everyone always kind of says, "Oh, Optimus Prime died," and everybody's so sad about it. Like there was massive slaughter. Like dozens of characters getting murdered in that movie.
Yep.
We should probably, because this is actually our 89th podcast episode, by the way.
No shit. Wow.
Yes. You and I, like, because we do this so consistently, we have way more episodes than my other channels, right? More than Anchorpete and more than Lastercast. So this is 89 for us.
Wow, we have to do something special for the 100th episode.
Hell yeah. But like I was going to say that for people that are just listening, Brian has a tremendous Transformers-like museum behind him, and he was pointing to this awesome painting of Optimus Prime. Well, I guess it's a painting, right?
It's a lithograph. So I mean, and it's half in color and half gray. And there's the smoke coming out of the back of him as from the scene where he died.
Yes. Yeah, so we're talking about Transformers 1986, the Transformers the movie. And Brian and I, when we were talking about in the Multiverse of Madness with Danny, who's the other guy in the Lastercast, we were talking about gateway horror, and we referenced a whole bunch of things, including other MCU movies that have kind of scary moments. We talked about movies like, Ghostbusters and Who Framed Roger Rabbit, like with Judge Doom. I think you referenced Large Marge, right?
From Pee-wee, yep.
Yeah.
Also wanted to I don't know how we didn't mention Beetlejuice and all of that.
Yes. I actually have like a writers group that I meet with once a month, and I asked them the same question tonight, and one of them brought up Beetlejuice, and I was like, oh shit, yeah, Beetlejuice is a good one too. Yeah.
Yep.
Tim Burton, man, he really did a number on us as kids.
Seriously.
Yeah. So anyway, what we always do on Thursday nights is Brian and I talk about Young Justice if a new episode came out, and then there's usually like an MCU show or a Star Wars show. So tonight we're going to be talking about Young Justice Phantoms episode 22, and then we are also going to talk about our rankings of the MCU movies. So
yeah, we didn't quite fit it in from the last episode with where we talked. We had the impromptu episode over the weekend to talk about Doctor Strange.
Yeah. So if you guys like listening to me and Brian talk, with our sexy voices, then definitely go check out our Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness review, which is on the YouTube channel and, of course, this podcast channel. So Young Justice Phantoms, episode 22, research. Wow, fuck that up. Rescue and Search. Do you think that the reason why it was called Rescue and Search was because Zatanna was one of the main characters?
Maybe. I mean, I feel like it would have been backwards at that point, but I mean, maybe because it's not totally her, they just switched the words up. Yeah. Well, you know what? I think maybe it's because they're going to, they're looking for two different characters. They're still searching for Connor, and they're gonna rescue. No, they're searching for Bart too. I don't know. I'm grasping straws here.
Well, it's funny. I don't. Have you ever seen the descriptions that they put on like IMDb for each episode?
On occasion, yeah. Some of them are very like blunt, and or not blunt's not the right word. They're very I don't know. They try to trick you.
Yeah. I know that one of the showrunners writes them, and he writes it like, he's describing like a sitcom or something. It's very like kind of blasé. Like for instance, this episode that we just watched, this is the actual episode description. Bart Allen went shopping. Zatanna Zatara stops by to talk baseball. Daring Dan Danger returns. Like if you didn't know what the hell was going on in the show, you'd be like, what the fuck is this? It just sounds like a real mediocre kind of show. And I think they do that for a joke. They do it in every single episode.
Yeah, no, so, I usually see them in the wiki too. They usually mention it too. But I mean, this doesn't even feel like it fits. Like,
yeah,
usually it's describing something that happens, but in a very mundane way.
Right, mundane.
Well, where did Bart go shopping? And have we ever heard of Dan Danger before in the show?
Well, in this episode, we absolutely do, right? But like, does Zatanna talk about baseball in this episode?
I don't know. Maybe I thought they were trying to say Zatanna was talking about. I don't know. Man, I guess I'm just lost in this one tonight.
Oh man, we are 5 minutes in, and we got some.
Let's have a drinking game. Take a shot for every time I say I don't know tonight.
Oh man, 89 episodes in, you'd think we get our shit straight by now. But and one other thing, because that wiki is actually pretty awesome, man. I went through it and I learned a few things. They actually have like all the different like locations and times for each episode. Because that's one thing is the show always lists like they're in this place and at this time and this date, right? And so like for this episode, they had they were at New Genesis, they were in El Paso, the Phantom Zone, Bloodhaven, Metropolis, the Watchtower, Dakota City, Poseidonus, Salem. That's where Dr. Fate's tower is, and then Supertown. So they were all over the freaking place.
Yeah, like we kind of thought that this arc was kind of bringing the whole team together and tying all the strands together. That we kind of saw this in a few episodes ago in the last arc, but they give us that big info dump of everything that's going on, how it all connects, and now this is going to bring all the the main team together to save Superboy. Although there wasn't Miss Martian yet, so
she wasn't there. Yeah, I'm sure that she'll kind of come in for like a big emotional moment when Superboy finally returns.
Yeah.
So we were talking about Zatanna wanting to see a detective, and we thought, well, maybe it's Batman. Maybe they're like misleading us. But then, of course, it was Dick Grayson. And then we saw him as Daring Dan Danger at the circus. I think it was like Bailey's Circus, right?
Yeah, something like that. Well, no, isn't it Haley's?
Oh, Hamley's Circus?
Or
okay.
Did they do a riff on it? I don't know. Oh, yeah. God, another shot. I wanted to comment on the detective thing. So, I mean, I think you said it was going to be Nightwing. I think I even knew it was going to be Nightwing, but I'm like, I said Batman because, he's more the detective. I mean, Dick is not necessarily known for that as well. I mean, he's really known for like the acrobatics and the leadership aspect. And I mean, it makes sense because it's this show and we really haven't seen much of him across this entire season. So it makes sense that it's him, but like it's odd because I would think Batman or Tim first, Yeah,
right. Well, don't you kind of feel like the Dick Grayson on this show is kind of more like Tim Drake?
Yeah, I suppose. I think when they first started going back to the first season, he did seem a little more like that because he was a little younger. I don't feel like I ever thought Dick was that young in any version of any comic I've ever read, unless it's like a flashback or something like that.
Right.
I could totally see that, and sometimes I think too the voice actor Jesse McCartney sounds too young, although I believe he is like in his 20s now at least.
Oh, okay.
I feel like a lot of the other actors sound older, and he sounds younger than what he's supposed to be. Well,
I mean, I agree with you there that he's even now as an adult Dick on the show, he does sound like real young. I agree with you. I think though that like with Young Justice, like with Dick Grayson in the comics, to me, the main characteristic of Dick Grayson is that he's like real positive and he's real like just outgoing and like he'll just jump off a roof. Like he's just, impulsive and confident. That's what I think of with Dick Grayson. I do think that he's very smart and he can like be a detective like Bruce as well. But I always think of those qualities first, like the acrobat, the daring adventurer, and then with Tim Drake, I always think of him as like kind of the computer smart one, the one that like analyzes things. And I think that like when you go back to the original Teen Titans cartoon, not Teen Titans Go, but the original one, I think that there was always this sort of ambiguity where it was like, could this be Tim Drake? Could this be Dick Grayson? And I think obviously they call him Dick Grayson on that show, but I felt like you could almost interchange them.
Yeah, I agree with that. Again, like even in that show too, I don't feel like any besides that in the show. I don't feel like we've ever really seen Dick that young in any. Oh God, that's a horrible line.
I said something like young Dick or big Dick. I just said something like that like 5 minutes ago too. So we're all good, man. We're all good.
Oh, this is a train wreck.
Yeah. When is it not?
Yeah. Let's call him Rick Grayson.
There you go, Rick. Well, they did that in the comics too recently when he got shot in the head.
Yeah, that's what I was referencing.
Oh, okay.
That made people angry. That was annoying to people.
So, I was gonna say though that I always kind of pictured this was the direction they were gonna go with Dick Grayson, because like they're starting to make the circus look more like Cirque du Soleil. I always kind of figured, because with comics, it's always a matter of like updating origins and stuff to be more modern or more contemporary. And the circus itself is very like old school. And a lot of people don't like the regular circus anymore because of the treatment of animals. And so I think that like the circus that Dick was in was very much like Cirque du Soleil. Have you ever gone to Cirque du Soleil?
I have not.
Oh, okay. I've gone a couple of times. It's actually really cool. And every time I go, I mean, the people are amazing. They look like they're fucking like in the Justice League or something. They do crazy shit. And I just, every time I see it, I'm like, this is probably when they do a modern version of Robin in like a movie or a comic, it'll be like something like this,
Yeah. But they're never going to do that because that's something I would want to see.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right. Probably. Yeah. So, let's talk about some other stuff I learned from the wiki, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay. So do you remember there was this one guy that was on Apocalypse? And I'm like, who is that guy? And you weren't sure who he was either?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So I found out who that it was on the wiki. His name is Graven. And
I was wondering where that blurb came from, because I'm like, was this a... I was very thrown for a loop with that. Okay.
Okay. So you saw the blurb, right? Where they talk about how the people from Apocalypse, Darkseid's people, come in the 13th century and try to conquer Earth, right? Have they ever shown that on the show, ever?
I don't think so, no. They've used Darkseid sparingly in this show, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, so, like, I know that, like, when we think of Darkseid and his forces coming to Earth, I think our general consensus is to think of, like, the Zack Snyder Justice League, like his version of Darkseid coming to Earth sort of around like ancient Greek times, like times of like, Wonder Woman, right? And to think that they came during the 13th century is real interesting. It would be around the time of Genghis Khan. Basically, just for people to wonder what the fuck I'm talking about, the blurb on the Wikipedia said, Darkseid's forces attempted to conquer Earth, but were pushed back by Vandal Savage using the name Genghis Khan. So Vandal Savage was trying to be, or he was Genghis Khan in this version of history. Darkseid and Vandal Savage forged a partnership to conquer the galaxy until only Earth and Apocalypse were left standing. So I never knew the details of their arrangement. Did you know that was the plan?
It sounds vaguely familiar but they seem more antagonistic sometimes.
Yeah.
So it is a little confusing. I mean, what season was this even established in? Because it's so hard to remember.
I know. I know that there's like one season, it might be like season 2, where like Vandal Savage goes to Apocalypse and he like shakes hands with Darkseid in a real kind of awkward way. They like grab each other's arms. And then that's like the last scene in the season.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was it like the Dylan, you son of a bitch handshake from Predator?
Yes, their muscles were bulging, that's for sure. Yes. But like, what I was going to say to you is, we talked about horror elements on the last recast today. I was going to say that this was kind of giving me flashbacks to horror stuff that was on this show, right? Because do you remember when they were like taking metahuman kids and like testing them and turning them into weapons and shit?
Yep.
That was really fucked
last
up.
Season, yeah.
Yeah. all the stuff they do with like the apocalyptic Darkseid's forces and stuff, and like testing metahumans, I think that's really like hardcore.
Yeah, it's human trafficking in cartoon form.
Yes, exactly. And like it kind of even goes further to where they're like experimenting on them and like, doing like genetic engineering. It's real fucked up.
Yeah, no, and they've even, some of those characters have had their roles expanded. Like the what was her name? Dolphin? Like she was one of those people that was tested on, I mean, she was just some regular kid, got tested on, and now she's a superhero.
Yeah, I totally forgot that, man. Yeah. This show's so good, and there's like so much that's happened on it. Sometimes I forget, Yeah. But let's actually talk about this episode now. So my favorite moment in the episode was when Superboy's in the Phantom Zone with General Zod and Ursa, right? And the General Zod asks him, which house are you from? And then Superboy draws that symbol, right?
Yeah. This is after he says Luthor too. He says the house of Luthor first,
right?
And then later on he draws the symbol.
Right. And then, and Zod's like, well, I'm wearing my house symbol on my chest. Do you remember your symbol? And he draws the S from Superman, in the house of L. And I just love that. Like their reaction when he wrote that was like the best part of the episode for me.
Yeah. And then they, from there they find out what happened, how long they've been there, or an approximation of how long they've been there. I find it interesting that Connor is so like, he's almost like indoctrinated in a way. Like he seems like he's like a robot.
Yes.
And I'm curious to see what he'll be like when he comes out. Like, is he recovering his memories or is he losing them?
That's a really good question. Like,
they're showing those flashes of things. I mean, today they didn't show any flashes of actual memories. They were more so what he was kind of like seeing when he was in the Phantom Zone. Like he kept seeing Luthor, kept seeing himself killing Superman. So it's curious. I'm curious to see where that goes there and what happens when they inevitably, reunite with him.
Yeah. They're probably going to use his non-Kryptonian DNA or whatever to get through from the Phantom Zone. He's going to probably be the thing that makes them cross over, and then that's going to lead to a big, massive fight on Earth. And that'll probably be the end of the season. Like, this is the last arc for this season, right?
This is the end of the season, yeah. And
wow.
Not to get too ahead of here, but like based on this whole Warner Brothers and Discovery merger, and then them canceling things left and right, like I'm real concerned about this show coming back at this point.
Shit. Yeah.
They have not renewed it as of yet. And I hope this wraps up in at least a semi-satisfying way. I mean, they usually do a pretty good job of that.
Yeah.
But like the fear is real, I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I didn't even think of that. I know that you were telling me that they maybe had canceled Doom Patrol, right?
You know what? That might be bullshit because that was the only place I saw that rumor. I know they were already filming it. I really doubt that they would just can it. Something that's in production already. Because this stemmed from an article about the cancellation of a Wonder Twins movie, which I don't think I remember knowing about.
Yeah.
And then it also might have been one of those like sites that I always say like, oh, this is clickbait bullshit. Like, I can't remember any of them right now. Giant freaking robot or something like that.
Screen Rant or something.
Screen Rant, yeah. Screen Rant's kind of bad. Yeah, but they're bad. They have bad opinions.
I think Screen Rant might have been the site that had the idea that they were going to replace Ezra Miller with another young actor, for the Flash. Yeah.
They are a very clickbaity site. I feel like that they occasionally have something right, but or they're like a tiny little bit. I mean, I can't forgive them for that Transformers article I sent you that one time. I can't remember what it was about now that I'm thinking about it. But the Transformers comics. We just want stories about Bumblebee and Starscream and none of these other guys. I'm like, no, fuck you. You're wrong. Shut up.
That's right.
Go back to where you came from. You're wrong.
Yeah, man. Yeah, actually, most of my favorite Transformers comics usually don't have Bumblebee or Starscream in them. So yeah,
Yes.
fuck you, Screen Rant. But I am okay with that article idea of replacing Ezra Miller. It's a little side note. Brian and I actually usually talk about the Ezra Miller news, which is so fucking consistent. It's like crazy. It's like every week there's some kind of new thing that he's doing at a bar, or they are doing at a bar. You know?
Yeah.
Like he spat. They
I'm
spat.
surprised they haven't kicked him out of Hawaii yet.
Yeah, no, seriously, right? I think the last one was they spat in someone's face, like at a karaoke bar or something. I'm like, okay, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, like this one had like footage of him like saying shit to like the cop or something. I'm like, oh God.
Yeah, something about NFTs, right?
Yeah.
Oh
yeah, he got into a fight about no, he was being assaulted because of NFTs. So someone wanted his NFTs or some shit. Like
wow.
That sentence alone just hurts my head.
Man, they're just like living on a different planet than we are, you know?
Yeah.
In Hawaii, getting into fights about NFTs, you know. I mean, we're much more grounded in reality. 40-year-old men talking about cartoons, you know, we know what we're doing.
Yeah.
So
we have our priorities straight.
Yeah, come on, man. So for my second favorite moment, I really like when Superman or Clark is in Bibbo's diner, and it's Nightwing and Zatanna come up to him, and they're like, you know, asking him questions, and he looks at them and he's like, "Oh, I need to go find a better place to get coffee." I just thought that was great.
Yeah, it was also interesting with Clark just basically giving them one word answers, like, "Oh, you need to know basis" and all that. I mean, I guess that's because of the time travel aspect and the risk of that, but I was almost surprised that it was like that. Yeah, I don't know where I'm going with
that. Well, we've said this on the show before that they really do kind of make Clark kind of seem a little like wimpy and make him seem sort of aloof. Like this is definitely not the best version of Superman. This isn't like the ideal version of Superman. In a little bit of a way, he seems like a coward. He definitely seems aloof. And it's interesting too, because I guess they're implying that he's like 40 years old too, right? Because they said that Krypton blew up 40 years ago.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things about like getting to our age is you always think of like Batman and Superman as older than you. But now at this point, like in the comics, I think both of them are younger than us.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
So it's a hard pill to swallow. But yeah, so he goes and he basically brushes off Nightwing and Zatanna. They continue their investigation to find out what's going on with Bart, and then also to see if there's a connection to Connor, who's, you know, they believe is alive. They're trying to figure out where he is. And actually, there's one thing that we forgot to totally talk about. Speaking of Bart, there's that battle right in the very beginning with Lord Zod on the bioship. Yeah. Did you like that battle?
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, you know, it was Flash tries to go over on Zod to try and save everybody, but it doesn't work. It's those kind of hostage situations are always interesting in shows. You kind of, it's like, you know, why aren't the heroes, the villains killing the heroes, and you know, what do they need them for? And you know, where are they going? I mean, was it just a desperate attempt to escape at that point when they took the bioship?
I think so. Yeah. Maybe.
I mean, now we know they're going to Oa. So
right. And that sequence where he's like fighting them and he's fighting Kid Flash, that reminded me of both the Joss Whedon version of Justice League and the Zack Snyder's version of Justice League, where Superman sees Flash and he's able to kind of see him and target him, even though he's moving at super speed. And I like that he shot him with his heat vision, you know?
Yeah.
But my question is, why do they need Bart and the cosmic treadmill? Like, why does
okay, so the cosmic treadmill, I think it's just to make Bioship go faster. I originally thought it was so they could do some time travel shenanigans, but I don't think that's the case. I think it's literally just to make the ship go faster because they're traveling ridiculous distances. They mentioned, you know, earlier on in the series with the first Martian arc, you know, they mentioned the Bioship trip from Earth to Mars took a couple of weeks or a month. Yeah, you know, now they're going from, you know, from Earth to Supertown and to wherever in a much shorter amount of time. So I think that's what that was about. It was just kind of souping it up. And then yeah, it looks like, you know, they took the pit stop in Supertown. Malfoch. Fuck, did I say that right?
I think you
That
did
might
say
be
it.
the
Yeah,
closest I ever got.
Yeah.
He comes back as after impersonating Light Ray and finds out what's going on. They're looking for the what is that little cube's name? What do they call it?
Okay, the name of the cube is called the Kaiser Thrall.
The Kaiser Thrall. So they find out it's on Oa, and that's where they're going.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk about that Kaiser Thrall in a minute too. So I like that little battle in the very beginning. It's nice and tense to show off different powers. I always like the idea of having a Kryptonian as a bad guy. That's always very scary and intimidating. And then that was the very beginning of the episode. I think before like they even did the opening credits.
Yes.
Then you have another battle, and it's where Zatanna brings Clarion to the Tower of Fate, and they want to use Clarion to find Superboy, and he's just not having it, and he fights them. He kind of mimics everyone's powers, and it was cool because basically you have almost the entire team, just not Miss Martian, right?
Yeah. I thought that I actually enjoyed that fight a bit more than the earlier one. I mean, obviously it was a bit longer too, but I liked that it showed what Clarion is capable of. I mean, a lot of the time, I mean, especially with the magic arc, like they made him seem a bit weaker. He was fighting the child and all that. But like, and also he himself seems like a child. You know, he seems like a spoiled brat, and he kind of is. But you know, he's absolutely a formidable foe, and you know, he took out everybody. You know, with no issue whatsoever.
Right. Yeah, he's pretty scary on this show. Like this show, and then I think that this show actually influenced that that DC hero show, that Justice League show that was like just little short adventures. I can't remember what the fuck it was called. You know what I'm talking about though? Justice League is like Justice League, not United, but Unlimited or something. Yeah,
Unlimited. Yeah. It was Justice League, but it was just they were all told in half an hour instead of the previous Justice League two episode hour arcs things. Yeah.
These like short kind of brief stories, and he was on there too. And I think that it's pretty much the same kind of Clarion as the one they have on Young Justice. And you also had like John Constantine was on there too at one point. And I just really like this version of Clarion, and I think he's better than his comic book counterpart.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that.
Yeah. So, you know, we have that battle, and then going back to the Young Justice Wiki, there's 3 questions that they left off. I was going to ask you the questions to see your answers. So, speaking of Clarion, and you know, there's that bus that he kind of took over. Why does Zatanna need the school bus? Okay,
so you have to go back a couple episodes to the Zatanna arc. So this was, you know, the previous half season. That psychic image that she keeps showing everybody of Connor, you know, calling out for help. She's trying to convince people that he's still out there and he needs help. She saw that at a point during that battle, one of those magic battles where the bus travels through dimensions. So the bus goes through the Phantom Zone, and that's when she sees that moment. And I think she thinks that maybe there's some residual energy in the bus, or maybe they can use it somehow to get back to the Phantom Zone. I mean, it's kind of far-fetched, I guess, but you know, Clarion possessed that thing for like 10 years or something like that, the equivalent of 10 years. So maybe there's some magic left in there.
Yeah. Oh, I am so glad that you pay attention to details like that, because I totally forgot that she saw Superboy during that whole bus encounter. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. She's gonna like use the bus as almost like a guide to getting Superboy, like to find him. So that's awesome.
It'd be kind of funny if they just get on the bus and just ride that to the Phantom Zone, and that's how they come back.
That would be kind of fucking awesome. Except like evil Kryptonians come off the bus, you know, that would suck.
Yeah. But, I mean, it goes back again to that, like the running gag of the bus and how they're really like, we thought they doubled down on it before, but now they're like really double down on, triple down.
Yeah, exactly. No, I know. It's awesome. I love that, like the contained universe of this story and the callbacks and the references. I mean, you are really good at spotting that shit. I'm not as good as you, but okay, you answered that fucking question. The wiki asked that question. You answered it. Why does Lord Zod, here's question number 2. Why does Lord Zod still want the Kaiser Thrall?
Well, That's a great question. Obviously, it has some kind of power. It was helping him run that time sphere that he had, and keeping it out of sync so he wasn't detected. I don't know. I mean, is for him? Is that the key to getting back to his original time? Is it? I mean, it has to have some kind of power. And then also, with your next question, I could already see you wrote. And then dealing with the end credit scene is, knowing what the Kaiser Throw actually is. And, they're examining it on Oa, and they determined that it's an 11-year-old Earth boy. Yeah. And I am just completely clueless on what the hell that could be.
Yeah. Okay. So I was wondering about that too. Yeah. That post-credit scene, or I guess that credit scene, right? Because it's like during the credits. They're sitting there, and that's Forager, right? That's in the shot.
That's the new Green Lantern Forager. I don't think the other character was named. Okay. I wasn't sure who that was, but I mean, there are hundreds of Green Lanterns. So,
right. Maybe it's that girl, the one that's the daughter of Sinestro.
Yeah, I did see some purplish looking skin there that was a different hue than Forager. So, that's a good guess.
Thanks. But I was gonna say that, like, you're so good at getting the references, like, to previous episodes and previous seasons. I was thinking that, like, it might be some kind of kid that they experimented on, like going back to what we were saying about, like, the people from Apocalypse and sort of human trafficking. Maybe there's some kid that they captured, and we just don't realize it was like a thread that never got tied up, And I don't know what kid it is, but maybe it's something to do with that.
That's a great point, because we mentioned that it was Apocalypse interfering in an experiment on these kids, and this is clearly some Apocalypse tech here, because it resembles a mother box in some manner. So that's an excellent point. But I mean, the way they proposed the mystery of it, I feel like it's got to be something we know.
Yeah.
Right. Or at least that would be a more satisfying answer than it would just some random kid or something like that.
Yeah. I honestly, I almost kind of feel like going back and like rewatching the whole fucking show and just like paying attention to the details and stuff. Cause I mean, there's such huge gaps in between certain seasons, and I just feel like going back and just like watching the whole show, and just
especially between 3 and 4. Yeah. I mean, 2 and 3. Sorry.
Right. Two is the one with like the reach, and then 3 is the one with the like trafficking and metahumans and the outsiders and stuff, right?
Yeah, but that was where there was like the 4 or 5 year gap, because the show was canceled and brought back. So that's why between those 2 times is like the biggest mystery to me. Like I sort of remember stuff from last season, because it was only like a year or 2 ago, but
right,
it's been 4 or 5 years since I've watched seasons 1 and 2.
Wow. Yeah. I may go back and watch. I don't know how much time I have, because what was there, like 3 more episodes left or 2 more episodes left this season?
There should be 4, because this was the first episode of the arc. So.
Oh, okay. So maybe like over time I could watch them all, just sneak them in, like while I'm exercising and shit. So, did you have any other questions or comments or anything about this episode?
I don't think so.
Okay, nice. All right, so then now we get to this other fun part. Brian made this awesome document that just keeps track of, I just saw you pop up on it too, of all of his rankings of things. And so we didn't get a chance to rank our MCU movies like we always do when a new MCU movie comes out. So I figured that tonight we could spend some time talking about it. Brian, I was thinking that like we could do our rankings of just the Phase 4 movies first, and then do all of them. What do you think?
Yeah. Although I didn't write that quite out yet. I mean, I could just do that on the fly. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want me to do mine first? That way you can help you do them on the fly.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Okay. I think since there's only a handful of movies here, we can kind of go into detail about the movies themselves. And then when it's the MCU movies of 28 fucking movies, that one we'll just kind of breeze through. So for me, if we're going through, there's been 5 movies for Phase 4 so far. And some of them came out in 2021, and then some of them came out in 2022. My number 5, the bottom of my list, is Black Widow. even though I actually like really enjoyed it. Probably one of the things that made me enjoy it more is I saw it with my daughter, and my daughter enjoyed it. But I do have issues with it. It kind of feels like it's kind of forgettable, you know. Just going back and thinking about it, like these other movies just always pop into my mind. I'm like, oh yeah, there was a Black Widow movie too. Like, how do you feel about Black Widow?
I wouldn't put it at the bottom, but I kind of see where you're coming from. I feel like there are some things I remember from it. I mean, especially when you talk about Yelena, I thought she was a standout in that movie. And it's a character I'm excited to see where they take in the future. I mean, we also saw her in Hawkeye too. So she still has a future somewhere. And with her involvement with Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who's
the Countess or Countessa?
Yeah, the Countess,
yeah. Okay, yeah, right. She's sort of like the thing that you take from that movie. Like, oh, well, at least the movie gave us this, right?
Yeah.
So my number 4 is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Is your ranking of Shang-Chi as low as mine?
I would flip Black Widow and Shang-Chi there because I mean, I really don't remember much of what happened in Shang-Chi. I remember the bus scene pretty well.
Yeah.
I remember there being like a big dragon at the end, and they're in some magical place. I couldn't tell you where it was, so yeah, I don't remember as much about the show. I mean the movie as I do about Black Widow. I remember more about Black Widow than I do about Shang-Chi.
Okay. Well, I think that there's one thing that Shang-Chi and Black Widow have in common, which is that the end battle in both of them seems like way more exaggerated and blown up than it needs to be. And I think that you could have had like more intimate battles in both movies and it would be more satisfying. Whereas I think both of them just like, we're like, oh, we have to take it up to 11 because it's a Marvel movie and everything's big now. We've had Infinity War. And so I think that is a problem with these Phase 4 movies so far. What I will say is for my number 3 pick, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, I would say that the final act in this one is probably the second best final act in these Phase 4 movies. This has a really good final act. Everything that happens with Doctor Strange in that zombie strange body, that's just so good. That's so different from anything else in any of the other MCU movies. And the fact that he's fighting against Wanda, the way that Wanda ultimately loses, like what happens to her, I think is great.
Also don't forget to take into consideration too that it's ultimately America that really shows Wanda the error of her ways, and she's the real hero at the end of that in that sequence.
That's a really, really good point. Yeah, like even America Chavez, who I think a lot of people were anticipating she was going to be like an annoying character or people were going to have issues with her, though she's a great character. And you're right, she shines in this end battle here. So. As we know from my review, I had some issues with Doctor Strange, but it's like in the middle of these movies. Then for my number 2, it's Eternals. And I think that just in general, a lot of people don't have love for this movie. And I think the main reason why they don't have love for this movie is because it just seems more serious and it like takes its time. Whereas other movies are like more tongue-in-cheek and fun and action-focused. Do you think that that's a general consensus with people?
Yeah, I think. Well, and I think I would like to add to that too that I think a lot of people had trouble connecting with the characters.
Yeah,
a lot more, especially with these Phase 4 movies. As we kind of get away from the initial set of characters that are pretty much household names even prior to these things. Like people would know who Captain America was and the Hulk and Iron Man and Thor. People would at least hear that and know that, oh, that's a comic character that exists and whatever. But like, when you say Doctor Strange or you say even Black Widow or Hawkeye, Shang-Chi was definitely not known beforehand. And I see the same thing with the Eternals is that nobody knew who they were. They are kind of blandish, I suppose.
Yeah.
And their backstory, I think, I mean, maybe they'll make it work better in the MCU than in the comic, but like it seems to contradict other general backstories, of the universe and the multiverse and whatever. They see, because they're basically saying that they were kind of gods, but they're also gods, like actual gods, and how does this all fit together?
Yeah, how does this work with Thor and like Moon Knight now too? Like,
yeah, somebody actually pointed out. So somebody pointed out that where Stephen worked in London was like literally like a few blocks away from where Kit Harington, Dane Whitman worked.
Oh, okay. That's
so
cool.
it would be almost impossible that they've never met or something.
Right.
I guess he wasn't there that long, but still.
I think from one of the things that I heard too was that the idea was that you would expect those two to, like, you would expect Dane Whitman to show up in like a post-credit scene, and that would be that connective tissue. They were going to actually put Kumail Nanjiani. Am I saying his name right? Yeah. He was actually Kingo. Not Kinko's. He's not photocopying shit. Kingo was gonna be in the post-credit scene for Moon Knight because the director of all the Moon Knight episodes, or most of the Moon Knight episodes, is a big fan of Kumail Nanjiani, or like his friend or something.
They were friends. Yeah. Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But then they just ended up not having that happen. It was like too much, because I think they were gonna have the Eternals like fighting with Amit.
Wait, fighting against or with?
I think against. I think like they're like, that whole thing with Amit where like Amit gets put into stone or whatever, or like trapped. I think.
Yes. I'm sorry. In the flashback. So yes, that would have been that night that Contra kept mentioning that they didn't show, that I wish they would have expanded on a little more.
Right. And I think that what happened was it was just like too much of a budget. It was like too much of an elaborate sequence to make. So they just took all the Eternal stuff out of Moon Knight altogether.
I'm sure there would probably be a ton of scheduling conflicts as well with a cast of that size,
Right.
And, there are some fairly large names in that, I would say.
Right. That's a good point too. Yeah. So going back to the rankings though. So I have Eternals as 2. And then I think this is probably the same for your number 1, but my number 1 is Spider-Man No Way Home. And I just think it's so satisfying on so many different levels. Multiverse of Madness had cameo appearances from characters that we love from other movies, or at least kind of versions of them. But Spider-Man No Way Home like truly captured the feeling of those characters from the other Spider-Man movies. And I just think it's really well done. I'm actually really eager to watch it again when it's on Disney Plus. So that's my number 1 for Phase 4.
Yeah. So I already mentioned that I have Shang-Chi and Black Widow differently than you, and then I also have Doctor Strange and Eternals separate from you, but I have Spider-Man in the exact same spot.
Nice. So you want to just read through yours real quick then?
Yeah. Number 5, Shang-Chi. 4, Black Widow. 3, Eternals. 2, Doctor Strange. And number 1, Spider-Man. So I did really like both Eternals and Doctor Strange a lot. Probably a lot more than most other people.
Right.
I especially felt the end conflict of Eternals like really resonated with me, because I was so surprised that they were essentially fighting each other. When they kind of had this whole family dynamic prior. So I found that to be very interesting, but I still feel that those characters, there's just something lacking about those characters that makes them a little more bland.
Yeah.
And again, I don't remember what episode I was talking about. I said this, but I feel like when they cast these roles, they're taking into consideration when they cast a more well-known character, they could maybe cast a less known actor and have the character kind of carry the film somewhat more.
Yeah.
But here, like, they have some really big names in this movie for characters that nobody's going to know.
Right.
Right at the bat, it comes to mind, Salma Hayek and Angelina Jolie, which are huge, crazy names.
Right.
I would say that, at the time they cast this movie, Richard Madden was a bigger name because of Game of Thrones, although everyone seems to have just kind of collectively forgotten about Game of Thrones because everyone was so dissatisfied with that last season.
Right.
And then who else is in there? Barry Keoghan. I mean, he's an up-and-coming actor. Who else?
Um,
somebody. Kumail Nanjiani too, of course. Like they cast. I feel like this is one of the times they cast bigger names to help carry and sell the characters, the more unknown characters.
Yeah, I mean, dude, you are right on the money with that. It's interesting because
casting Harry Styles.
Yes, right. Post credit, right. Good point.
I guarantee that brought in at least $100,000 or $200,000 for One Direction fans or wherever he's from.
Right. No, One Direction is correct. Yeah. But he's got his own solo thing too. That mid credit scene, right? That stands out. To go along with your point, with the exception of Kieran Gillen's current Eternals run, I think even in the comics, people aren't really interested in them, or that they're not anyone's main favorite characters in comics, right? But where they seem to work, or at least what I know from my experience in decades in comics, is Cersei is the one that's kind of like the standout character. Yeah. And she, mainly because of the 90s Avengers run where she's with Black Knight. I think that's what most people think of the Eternals. What's that?
Yeah, because she was on both the Avengers and the West Coast Avengers at various points in the 90s. There's definitely, she has the most connective tissue, I think, there. And I read a bunch of Eternals comics after the movie because I was just curious, and of course they were on sale in Comixology. And they were interesting, absolutely. But I think when they started to integrate them into the larger Marvel universe, it just didn't work as well.
Yeah.
Much like I think I feel like there was a time when Marvel was really trying to force Inhumans down your throat.
Oh, there was. Yeah. Oof.
And that kind of died down. But I think even they succeeded more with that than they did with Eternals. There are positive. I see positives in the Inhumans. I think Medusa's an excellent character. The Black Bolt solo series was by Al Ewing was fantastic. So there's some real bright spots there, but I don't see as many bright spots with Eternals. And I feel like this next X-Men versus Eternals with the Avengers in the middle comic storyline they're going to do is going to be like worse than Inhumans versus X-Men.
Oof. Yeah. That's gonna be pretty low bar.
I hated that story so much.
Oh yeah, that was really bad. Was it Al Ewing that wrote the Black Bolt, or was it Saladin Ahmed?
Oh, you're right. Yes, it is Saladin Ahmed. Yes.
Yeah. No, dude. Everything you just fucking said, I agree with. What I mean, that makes sense, right? Like, I think it's because like it's Jack Kirby made it. It kind of is reminiscent of like the New Gods that are over in DC, which are far more compelling and interesting characters. I think that they want to make Eternals work, and it's not gonna happen, you know. And it'll be cool to see them with other MCU characters, but I don't know what that looks like, you know, in phase.
Yeah, they feel so separate from everything, and it feels even more off than it did with Inhumans. Like Inhumans fits in somewhere. I mean, I really associate them more with like Fantastic Four because of Crystal, really. Than I do with like the Avengers or the X-Men.
Right, that's a good point too. Yeah. So what do you call it? As far as our rankings, why don't we do this? Why don't we go from like 28 to 20 each, and we'll see what is similar for our Marvel rankings. And then I had a kind of interesting question too. I wonder if you could figure this out while you're doing this. Which Marvel phase, out of your favorite movies, which Marvel phase has the most of your favorite movies? Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
So I think it's probably kind of obvious which one. I'm guessing for you too, because I think you're very similar to me. But why don't we go through 28 to 20? Then we'll go from 20 to 10 or 19 to 10, and then 10 to 1. Is that cool?
Yeah.
All right. So like I'll go, then you go. So for 28, we always kind of talk about these same movies down here at the bottom, but it's Incredible Hulk is 28, Iron Man is 27, Thor: The Dark World is 26, Ant-Man is now 25. So I've changed mine up a little bit too, by the way. Captain America: The First Avenger is 24. Spider-Man: Far From Home, which I actually really didn't like, is 23. Doctor Strange, the original one, is 22. Ant-Man and the Wasp is 21. Thor, the original Thor, is 20. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, we have some similarities there, but not as many. And there are some big. There's always two big things. You're gonna make a face every time I say it, you make the face. So I have 28. I have Iron Man 2, 27 Incredible Hulk, 25 Thor: The Dark World. Pretty much on par with yours. Same bottom three.
Right.
I have Doctor Strange is number 25, the original. That's you had that bottom ranking, right?
In that range, yeah. Yeah.
Then I have Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Then I have the first Iron Man. And then here comes the face.
Oh, oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's always a surprise. It's like, it's like one of those things where like, someone's like, look over here, and they have their dick out, and you're like, oh, not even to see their dick. It's like, holy shit.
Yeah, I guess like I remember. It's not that I didn't like doing it. Like I agree with our mutual friend Danny that I don't think there's a bad movie in this lot.
Right.
And there are some mediocre, but I feel like, and I almost hate to say this because Chad Boseman passed away, but I feel like Black Panther was the least compelling character in that movie.
Yeah.
I think literally everyone else was more interesting. And
especially
that really detracted from the movie to me.
Yeah.
At 21, I have Thor, and at 20, I have Ant-Man, the first Ant-Man.
Okay. So
those are pretty similar to yours too. It's just those two there. The first Iron Man and Black Panther, we always greatly disagree on. Yeah.
So yeah, and I don't have like a tremendous amount of time too because we spent a lot of time on Young Justice, I think, tonight.
Yeah.
What do you call it? I was gonna say though that I feel like we should always kind of go into more depth about why certain movies don't click with us. Like I'm actually very intrigued why like Iron Man would be so low on your list and things like that. But let's go from now 19 to 10. So for me, my 19 is Avengers Age of Ultron, 18 is Black Widow, 17 is Captain Marvel, 16 is Iron Man 3, 15 is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, 14 is Spider-Man Homecoming, 13 is Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, 12 is The Eternals, 11 is Iron Man, and then, why don't we just stop there and then we'll just do our top 10.
Sure.
Okay, so what you got?
For me, I have Shang-Chi at 19, Iron Man 3 at 18. I'm going to get the face again. The first Guardians of the Galaxy at 17. Age of Ultron at 16. Captain America, the First Avenger at 15. Spider-Man Far From Home, 14. Ant-Man and the Wasp, 13. Black Widow, 12. Spider-Man Homecoming, 11. And that's where we end up. So there's still some similarities there. It's a little off here and there, but I think the biggest difference there is me putting Guardians that low. I know that's high on your list.
Yeah. It's very clear to me that there's certain MCU movies or like franchises in the MCU that click more with you, and then there's some that click more with me. And I think Guardians kind of click. Go ahead.
Guardians does click with me, but I really didn't like the ending. I was very disappointed with that final battle, and that really detracts from the movie to me. That is the sole thing that drops that movie down so low. Is I really didn't like the dance off, and then the standing and holding the Power Stone. Like it just, I feel like it was so boring.
Yeah, and I understand. Yeah, all of these movies have flaws and things that bother me, and I understand being bothered by that kind of that dance off. I get that. Yeah. Which is so funny because we love James Gunn so much and like, Peacemaker and stuff, right? But right. What do you call it? As far as other things, like I think I have more love for obviously Black Panther and I think Captain Marvel. And then you seem to like this Spider-Man movies more than I do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a sucker for Spider-Man. That's my favorite. So I mean, it's kind of hard to. I mean, we have them in the same order. I think. Okay. Far From Home was my least favorite. Then Homecoming, and obviously, I love No Way Home. So, at least there's that.
Well, then let's see where No Way Home ranks for you. So for me, here's my top 10 MCU movies as of May of 2022. Top 10. Number 10, Captain America Civil War. 9, Avengers. Number 8, Captain America the Winter Soldier. 7, Guardians of the Galaxy. 6, Avengers Endgame. 5, Spider-Man No Way Home. 4, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. 3, Thor Ragnarok. 2, here's where we're different, Black Panther. Number 1, Avengers Infinity War.
Yeah, that's the big difference here, but you're going to hear a lot of the same movies, but the bottom of mine here may be a little different. So at 10, I have Eternals.
Nice.
And
okay.
that actually, I dropped that down a little bit. That's really the only major change I made here. At number 9, I have Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness. I think the Sam Raimi stuff really carried this a little higher than normal for me. Yeah. Then at 8, I have Civil War. 7, Guardians 2. 6, Avengers. 5, Infinity War. 4, Winter Soldier. 3, Thor Ragnarok. 2, Endgame, and 1, No Way Home. With the main reasons why those 2 are at the top are the emotional beats that in those movies. It's overwhelming to me. I can't deny when a movie makes you feel something that strongly. Like I can't deny it how much I love it.
Yeah. No, the thing is that like I can't necessarily disagree with any of your placements, with maybe the exception of Black Panther. But I mean, even that I kind of understand. But for me, I looked at the rankings and I saw that most of my top 10, and it looks like most of your top 10, are phase 3. And I was thinking about that. I think just probability wise, that's going to happen because I think phase 3 has the most movies out of all the phases at the moment.
Yeah, they have 11 movies.
What's that?
11 movies in phase 3.
Right. And then also phase 3 is like, that's where you have the most payoffs, right? Like if you look at like trilogies and stuff, that's when you kind of have like the biggest moments. Like Return of the Jedi has the biggest moments, right? That's phase 3 of the MCU. So those moments that you mentioned before, phase 3 is where, well, No Way Home is in phase 4, but like, a lot of the other movies are in phase 3. You have those beats,
Yeah. But phase 1 and 2 has 6 each. 3 has 11, and currently, I mean, phase 4 is going to have more than phase 3.
Yeah.
But that'll be, 3 years down the line, but when that ends.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's cool going over the rankings. I actually wish that we had more time to just kind of go into even more depth about them, but I got to hit the road. I was going to say, though, that next week we have Young Justice, and then I don't think there's any other. Is there another show?
What's coming up is next.
Hold on. I got a list. Next Thursday.
I always said I was going to make that calendar, and I never did. I know we have Obi-Wan coming. That's a couple weeks.
Yeah, 5/19 is just Young Justice again. So maybe we could talk about our rankings like a little bit more then, just to go into depth about it. And then, Obi-Wan starts on 5/25.
So we have Obi-Wan coming, and we have Miss Marvel and the boys all coming pretty close together.
Yeah, that's gonna be a fucking crazy time.
And God, is the last Young Justice gonna overlap with both the boys and Miss Marvel and Obi-Wan? Oh God.
There is like Wednesday 6/8 is Obi-Wan, Young Justice, boys, Miss Marvel.
No.
So that'll be like a 2-hour episode for us.
Holy shit! Wait, is that episode 100? No, it's not.
It might be actually time-wise.
No. This is 89, so no.
Oh, okay. It's not 10 weeks from now or 11 weeks. Yeah. Oh, well. But it was a fun episode 89. And Brian and I will come back next Thursday. We'll talk about Young Justice. And then, we'll kind of go into more depth about our rankings and what Marvel movies, like why they stand out and why we don't like them as much as other people do. Sound good, man?
Sounds good.
All right. We'll see you guys next Thursday at 9:15.